What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the One More Rep podcast. I'm your host. My name is Joseph Percher. As always, this episode is brought to you by NutriBio Supplements, the best supplements in the game. Crystals Bikinis for all your trunk and suit needs, and Bio Longevity Labs. Today, I am joined by my friend Josh Jefferson and a friend of mine, Spencer Moses, the bodybuilding chemist and the Moses of Muscle. Both of you guys have like little monikers. I got to get
I
one.
was going to say it worked out, huh?
All right, we are doing rebound/slash off-season questions. We fielded questions on Instagram. If you guys aren't, please subscribe to the channel. Follow me on Instagram. I'm at jperch. That's where you can submit these questions. We also have a private Facebook group where I take questions from there as well. Okay. Off-season/slash rebound. Primo versus EQ. Now that Primo is supposed to be back on the menu. Spencer, what do you think?
I like them both. I'm running both. Right? I'm on what 525 of both currently.
Okay.
Start of this blast must have been like 8 weeks ago, something like that. I'm feeling pretty
Okay.
good.
Yeah. And this is
Running,
like an initial phase of prep. So this almost is like an extension of off season.
right. Yeah. Yeah. I had like a month and a half cruise, two
Yeah.
month cruise, something like that. Jumped right back into this before starting prep. So, yeah.
If you only are going to choose one, like, in the context of whether it's like either immediately post show or during like a solidified off season, I'd have to assume like most guys at this point now, especially if they're listening to the channel, the way that I see it is like tests should lead your growing cycle. But then let's say you're going to pick one over the other to be kind of your secondary compound for growing. What would you prefer?
I think it kind of depends on your finances and your hematocrit hemoglobin response. So if you tend to run a little high on hematocrit hemoglobin, you probably don't want to run as much EQ. But if your finances are not quite there, maybe running Primo might be a little more challenging, especially now, given
Yeah.
that prices are up and availability
Yeah.
is limited on Primo. Apparently it's around, I know, but less so than it was before, obviously. So those
Yeah.
are things to consider.
Yeah.
I I tend to notice EQs a little bit slightly stronger per milligram than
Mm.
Primo. I notice more of like a nervous system effect that kind of is a little bit more stimulatory. Uh,
Okay.
so there's a few different factors to consider there, or you could run a mix of both, like I'm doing. Uh, I don't see any problem with that.
Josh, what do you like?
I like EQ better.
Yeah.
Personally, I've never, when I was working with the guy overseas, I was using a lot more Primo and Masteron, and
Yeah.
like I couldn't have told you I was on a fucking cycle
Right.
whenever I added Primo in. When I add EQ in, I could tell you I'm on a cycle. I could see it, like the
Yeah.
fullness returns. Like
Yeah.
it's a, they what's it called? They say it increases your EPO or whatever.
Yeah.
I do feel that. Like I feel like I have endurance. I feel like I'm playing college football again.
Mm.
Not to like glorify a steroid, but like at the end of the day, I do feel like my endurance goes through the roof and
I agree.
just generally kind of feel better. Cardio feels a little bit easier. Training in a higher rep range feels a little bit easier. I recover a little bit faster. So EQ does something to where Primo, maybe I just had fake Primo, but like I didn't feel nothing on it.
Yeah.
Man,
Yeah.
you very eloquently put all the things that I intuitively have felt from EQ and put the reasoning behind it. Like I feel like a bull in a china shop when I'm on a lot of tests and a good amount of EQ to go with it, man. And I got the food and the training to go with it, like in terms of everything that's guiding me towards growing or putting on new muscle. I can't get enough EQ. Like you said, I think the two big ones are going to be your blood marker response on blood work. And I think when you are on EQ, you probably can't just stick your head in the sand and ignore that. Like that would be a time to pull a couple rounds of mid-cycle bloods to make sure it's not running wild on you. And then also you're going to need to check your blood pressure 3 times a week. Especially, like high to moderate EQ. A lot of us are going to be running high GH as well. You're talking about a whole lot of potential for water retention and high blood pressure. You need to stay on it. With all that said, I'm kind of in a separate. I have almost always thought about Primo being off the menu for me. I never really bothered with it. I know about it. I've used it enough to know that it's pretty similar to Masteron. And again, for like the idea of cost, oil volume, and also now the idea that what I'm paying this premium rate for might not even be real. I can't be doing that. Like, I am a freak about like testing and getting verified results that everything that I'm using is what it says that it is. And I just can't bring myself to use Primobolan, especially you talk to or hear from a lot of the, I would say what I would consider like old school, truly big guys. And none of them are blown away by what it has done for them in terms of growing. Like, it's a pretty modest or mild steroid. Whereas you guys both mentioned, like, you feel like you're on some shit when you're on EQ. You feel like you're growing and getting stronger. I notice a huge uptick to my off-season appetite when it might previously or otherwise be in a kind of spot. I'm ready to eat on EQ. And it's probably because my work capacity is higher in the gym, like you talked about, Josh. I'm doing more. So I love it. I love, especially with this kind of DHT shortage, I think that should probably be the staple number 2 compound for most people in a growing situation, given that you can handle it side effect wise.
Injection volume concerns as well, because
That's what I was saying. Oil volume, you can get 300 megs. You can
yeah,
get 500.
you compare that to fucking 200 Primo, that shit will knot you up if you're not diluting it with some like 200 test or something.
Yeah.
So I've found and even like higher concentration EQ, like 300 plus, seems to, when I'm running that with my 200 Primo currently, it seems to like help me handle the Primo, the high concentration Primo a little bit better, and I don't get knotting and swelling as much.
Yeah.
So if you're really trying to crank up the milligrams, depending on where you're at in your, your enhanced journey as far as what you can tolerate in your off season, if you're having to inject less oil volume at a time, you can only fit so much in a syringe to hit what you need, so.
I agree. That's a consideration for me. You know what I mean? I do daily shots because I want it each one to be as small as possible. And so I pretty much exclusively use testosterone and anthate because it's 300 milligrams per ml, and EQ and Deca. I can get both of them as 300 milligrams per ml. So then it's like, yeah, the concentration is a little bit higher, and some people will say that might lead to more swelling or PIP or whatever. But because I'm using it daily and I'm getting so much from such a little amount of oil, I might only be doing 0.3 or 0.4 ml, because of the concentration. So yeah, I agree.
EQ's unique like that for its concentration too. Like if you've ever gotten raws of EQ, oftentimes it's not a powder, it's like a syrup that comes in a bottle.
Really?
That's how I've seen it.
See, I don't know anything about that.
It's been a long time since I've tried to do that.
I'm solely a customer.
But it will remain liquid at room temperature often. So that lends to its ability to remain in concentration at higher milligrams.
So the only thing I will say though is I've heard some cycles of Primo where it's like 2 grams. I've never heard somebody taking 2 grams of EQ.
Right.
So I guess
I don't think you would need to. That's the point.
Yeah, like I'm just saying, if you're one of those, trying to increase the milligram number, I guess long term you can increase that milligram number with Primo longer. You can get it higher, but like
those are all those guys though. The guys that you hear doing that are on 140 milligrams of test per week, and then they fill their entire androgen load with DHTs, and it's like, yeah, no wonder your dick doesn't work and your knees hurt. Like, this is not a good cycle design at all. Yeah, I could go on about that. Here's one, especially for off season. Do we need to have added fats? Some bodybuilders like Roman Fritz just use lean meats and carbs. On the other hand, coaches like Patrick Tor, Jensen Tuttle add tons of fats. What do we think?
If you
So
got
I'm assuming also then like the caveat is like, and he only mentioned people like that are enhanced. So let's say for an enhanced bodybuilder, is there this need for added fats?
I think in health phase, there could be a little bit of added fats just simply for, lipid levels and stuff like that, trying to correct blood work. But outside of that, like you want things digesting pretty fast in a growing phase. And in a prep, I would say that you want your blood glucose to be pretty much as low as possible most of the day so you could be in a state where you're burning fat. So if you're slowing your digestion down, you're slowing your transit time down. And now that most people are probably going to be taking Retta in a prep or off season to slow your gastric emptying, you probably don't need as much as most people would say, and can get away with like omegas, EFA, DHA. Did I get
Yep.
those wrong? Yeah.
Yep.
EPA and DHA. Yeah.
So
What about
that's
you? So Spencer, you work with Tuttle. Is he a higher fat guy?
He's had me, I think, around 120 grams of fat.
Oh shit. So that's very high. I would consider that very high.
100 to 120. Yeah. And I had to shift mine around to consume more of my fats at night because it was slowing my digestion down too much during the day.
Yes.
And I notice, well, and I think there's also the complicating factor is how many carbs are you eating per meal too, because
Right.
that's going to affect your digestion. And that, if you're slowing down your digestion on carbs, depending on, especially for a guy like me, I'm eating like 150 to 200 grams of carbs per meal.
Yep.
So if I'm trying to choke down 40 grams of almond butter per meal on a couple of them, that's going to make me feel really fucking awful, especially if I'm trying to do that pre-training.
Right.
So how you structure that throughout the day also kind of matters as well, and how many carbs you're eating, and how much insulin are you using? Are you using something
Right.
like or metformin to help with insulin sensitivity? And are you potentially like if you're consuming a lot of carbs with high fat, are you putting a lot of stress on your small intestine by doing that, by slowing down your digestion? Because I had struggles with that this off season with having stomach acid issues. And once I shifted my fats to later in the day, it seemed to help a lot, having all of that before bed.
Yeah.
I personally, if I may talk to him about doing this next off season next year, I may try to taper back on the fats a little bit personally, because going that high seemed a little bit burdensome for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I will answer it like this because it almost seemed like the question was like from like a hormonal or functional thing. We hear that fats help hormonal health or create hormonal health. That's solely for naturals, guys.
Yeah.
Like absolutely. Especially if you're prepping a guy that's natural, you have to be mindful of that. There's dietary fat, there's added fats, there's monounsaturated fats, there's some saturated fats even.
Yeah.
I am more and more as I've grown into a more advanced bodybuilder and coach as I go through this journey, more and more I lean towards high carb, high protein, moderate to even very low fat, because we do not need them for that hormonal health. Talking about that hormonal health specifically, like Josh talked about, you're probably taking an omega or a good fish oil product. I think everyone should. And then besides that, we are injecting oil-based cholesterol derivative steroids. There is no need from a hormonal standpoint to add fats to ask our body to naturally do this. We're exogenously doing this. There's no need. And then so a couple other points I wanted to make. Besides just like, do you have to have fats? I would say no in that case if you're enhanced. And then besides that, more and more, as my experience grows, I find that people outside of like the anomalies, most people are going to do better composition wise when their surplus is mostly made up of carbs and protein, and they have fat dialed way, way back. It sounds bro, but it's hard to store fat when there's not much fat coming in. One. Now, if I am going to do it, you kind of touched on this, Spencer. I big time prefer, especially in a growing phase, if one, the fats are separate from carb meals, so it would just be pro and fat, and it push way later in the day.
Yeah.
I think it's a huge mistake when you're trying to eat in a surplus, and I see something like meal one has oats, eggs, nut butter, it's like, man, you're gonna have to eat again in ideally 90 minutes in the off season to stay on schedule. I like doing meal two 90 minutes after meal one to stay on track. And you're just setting yourself up to be bogged down all day. So I think we got asked as a separate question, are there any off-season appetite / dietary tricks to keep hunger moving and get all the food down? Part of this would be to cycle, if you are using them, I would say cycle the fat sources that you are using. So like you talked about, a big chunk of nut butter before you go train is not going to be a great idea. Most people, it's delicious. Everybody loves it, but most people do not digest nut butter very well. And so, okay, like let's say you're going to have fats in your pre-workout meal. I think something like an MCT oil is probably the best move there. MCT oil, coconut oil, it moves a little bit faster. The body digests it differently. And then I think the comment of putting them back at the end of the day, like backloading them, even if you want to just put all of your fat in one meal at the end with just protein, I think that's a great strategy.
I like that Josh touched on omega-3s as well. And one thing I do consider indispensable is olive oil.
Okay.
Its property that it has a lot of oleic acid in it, and if you have a sufficient amount of that in your diet, you can get away with taking a little bit, not quite super dosing omega-3s, and still getting a heightened blood response, because that little bit of oleic acid improves the bioavailability of EPA and DHA. I do think that having high levels of that, as it can be measured in like an omega quant test, and how it absorbs and how it's uptaken into the red blood cells, I do think that's important for making sure that you're getting optimal oxygen delivery to exercising tissues and to the brain. Especially.
Okay.
Yeah.
That and like from my bro perspective, not knowing it like that, extra virgin olive oil has like anti-inflammatory properties as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's probably part of the mechanism, is that it's increasing the efficacy of the omega-3s that are in your diet. I noticed substantially, like before I started working with Total, I didn't consume a whole lot of olive oil. I just did a little bit.
Sure.
And I measured my omega quant he had me actually lower my omega-3s and increase my olive oil consumption. And I was able to maintain the same percentage as far as its uptake into my red blood cells at right around 12% by spending way less money on omega-3s, because I was megadosing them. I cut my costs down by about 50% on that one supplement, just making a simple dietary change.
So like in terms of application, then what was the change then? So like how much were you taking 10 grams?
Like eight
okay.
to 10 grams a day before, and now.
And then what was the substitute in terms of like a meal total of olive oil? Were you doing one meal with 15 ml or something?
Yeah, I would do like 5 milliliters a day, like 2 to 3 times a day, and then 15.
Okay.
My off season, that's kind of where he's kept me for the most part outside of a prep setting. So
okay, wow, that's a really
a lot cheaper
informative.
To buy.
Yes,
to spend $200 a month on fish oil. So
I was gonna say, because I'm buying one of these fish oil products that I'm doing 6 grams a day, and it's like this is the most expensive health supplement that I take by far.
Right. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Wow, and that's a good tidbit.
It's totally indispensable. Like you can't not take it. Like it's
sure. But maybe I'll take 3 grams instead of 6.
Yeah. And I've found that to be helpful. I use that little trick with my clients too, especially ones that kind of struggle financially. They're a little more lifestyle oriented.
Sure.
Go a little bit higher on the olive oil.
Okay. Yeah. That's a good one. Now, in terms of oils, I do think, like why would you have them in an off season? I think when someone's struggling, or maybe they're maxed out with carbs and protein, in terms of like getting the food down and into your mouth and getting it down. Oils are obviously a high calorie, basically no cost. Like you just pour it over your meal, and it doesn't add any extra chewing or anything like that. It's
Right.
just I think the timing of them has to make sense.
For sure.
Okay, should I continue Tren after
Yes.
the show, but maybe lower the dose during the rebound?
Yes.
Yeah, you
My
could.
reason is it does with the glucocorticoid response and keeping cortisol down in the post-show period. Yes, I would say that it's going to cover those bases as long as you're someone who reacts well to it. I don't see why you wouldn't keep a very small dose. What was it, like 7 milligrams a day is all that's needed to fully saturate that receptor.
I think it's 20. It was 25 milligrams a week when I looked into it. So that's why I did 5 milligrams a day.
So to just keep that at bay, I mean, not the worst idea in the world. You're probably not in the best mental space right after the show. It's gonna get better relatively quickly, but right after, if you pull it, I would say that it could be harmful more than beneficial, depending on who you are as a person.
I personally am leaning more towards the side of pulling it personally, just because I'm immediately looking for a break from that shit because I've been on it for a good 8 to 10 weeks by that point, and my brain needs a break from it. But
Do you handle it well?
yes and no.
Depends who you ask.
Yeah, I seem to handle low doses much better. I liked 5 milligrams a day, which I did throw in at one point during my off season this year, and I handled that fine. But I think when my T3 and thyroid is still a little bit high, and I taper out of that coming out of the show, I feel like having some extra trend in there I feel like it would have been kind of overkill for me. But
Let me ask you, how do you find the comparison of, because you talked about using a low dose during the off season? How do you find the comparison? This was like solidified off season for you, or
no,
like immediately after the show?
this was well into off season. This wasn't.
Okay. All right. So that's what I'm asking. So how did you find that comparison of using that during that time period? You know, you're at a healthy body fat percentage, your sleep has normalized at that point compared to when you use it in prep. Like, does it affect your sleep terribly in prep? And then when you use it in the off season, it was less so?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just like that. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
But I also
I mean, you
this
use less.
yeah, I used way less. And this time around, I was also using Nebivolol as well, which is a
Okay.
blocker that helps me
Yep.
handle anxiety better. So I'll
Yeah.
be curious to see how it affects me in my upcoming prep. I'm hoping I'll be able to handle it a lot easier,
Yeah.
but that remains to be seen.
Interesting.
I'll let you know how it goes.
Yeah. Keep us posted.
Yeah.
Okay, you had just talked about this. This is a good one. Do you taper or go cold turkey off with stimulants like Clen, T3, any thyroids, etc., or stay on throughout the off season?
Clen, I don't see any reason to continue after a show. Uh, I think you can. I think you can pull that one right
Yeah.
away.
Yeah.
T3, I think we tapered out of that. For me, I think we did like, because I think I got up to like 25 micrograms. I think I ran like 12 and a half micrograms for like 2 weeks post show, and then we pulled
Okay.
it.
Okay.
So I do think that's worth tapering out of.
Okay.
But yeah, that's probably about it.
I
Josh?
I personally think you taper out of everything.
Okay.
Just simply because like immediately post show, you're gonna go out and have some food. Um, you're gonna enjoy yourself a little bit more unless you plan on following like directly to the T right after you get off stage your show prep or your diet that you're following up into it. You're gonna put on some body fat, and it's almost like a safety net per se. If you cold
Yep.
turkey cut all stimulants, cut all fat burners, and then go and have, I'm trying to think of a meal, a full pizza, like the next day you're going to be up 25 pounds. You're going to feel horrible. Like, but if you keep the little fat burner in, it might be a little bit quicker to wash it off. I'm not saying to keep it in long term, but like Cleanse maybe a week, T3 just stabilize out and then pull it. Um, I've never used like ephedra or anything like that, so I'm not going to even comment on when to pull those or when to taper with those. But like T3 and Clen, I would definitely say you keep in at minimum a week just to allow the body to kind of like regulate out and taper it off. And by the end of 4 weeks post show, everything should be out, in my opinion.
Man, I have varied experiences and opinions about this. I've done it literally all. I've pulled everything out and like immediately after the show, and for my body type, and at the time, like my level of adherence post show, that was a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
So I think if you're coaching someone or, doing things on your own, you need to know your own psychology and how well you're going to be able to adhere to a plan post show. That's number one. In general, as I, become more experienced and do things, in my own ways, I generally taper off most things. You're talking about ephedrine, yohimbine, some of these other things, they can all just come out immediately. Something like yohimbine actually like holds water. I prefer to get that out a week before the show. Clen, it is very, very person dependent. Like what I was describing, the person's psychology, the person's body type. You have some guys that are 5'4" and they put muscle on super easy and they get fat super easy. And it was a struggle to get their lower back and their glutes in the whole prep. You're going to put them in a surplus the Monday after the show. I'm probably leaving some Clen in. Now, I might have worked someone up to 120 micrograms in prep, and for a week or two, I'll leave in 40 micrograms. So it's like it's working as software in the background, but based on where you were and how much less this is, you're not going to have any of these like jittery, typical response that you might from taking Clen.
I could certainly justify tapering out of Clen, especially if you're working up to 120. It's probably dosage dependent. I didn't
For
get
sure.
I didn't get above 60 in my
Oh,
prep.
really?
I guess we felt like it was fine dropping that immediately.
Yeah. That's not a ton, man. And I don't even feel like 120 is aggressive. I commonly hear and have been put on. I've done 200 myself.
Fuck.
I
look at Clen
Pretty
as just
far.
like anxiety in a bottle for me. So I'm like,
Oh, okay.
come off that,
See,
like,
I don't get that at all. I don't get that at all. When I get to a new dose, I'll have a day or two that I'm like I wouldn't be able to write something down. Like I'm too jittery with my hands. But I don't really get the anxiety. I get that from higher dose yohimbine, where I just feel unsettled and edgy all day. But with thyroid, more and more, and the more understanding that I have of it and the way that I set preps up, it's going to be a longer term thing. For some people, it may ride in all the way through the off season, and we're just going to hang out on a baseline of some for most of the time. As I've gone through this, I prefer T4 to T3 actually, and that was based on my going through an entire prep and everything, using that by itself. My experience, I felt so much better on T4 than I did on T3. And the way that I think about it is it's just a more gentle approach. It's kind of giving your body the raw materials to then make its own conversion or make its own decision on how much you need based on how much you're eating or how lean you are.
It's going to be hastened, that T4 to T3 to T4 conversion, by the amount of GH that you're using too. So
absolutely.
That, like I know I've had my T4 tested pre and post show last year, and this year, my T4 has been crashed for like a long time. So we started T4 mid off season for me this year.
Yeah.
So I may be able to get by with that in prep. I'm not sure what the game plan is.
Man, I'll tell you, like some of these common prep feels, quote unquote, that everyone just accepts as being normal. Lethargy, the feeling of being cold no matter what. Like that was a guaranteed thing for me always in contest prep. Once you reached a certain point, it was just like Yep, at random, I'm gonna be fucking freezing here. Like I live in Florida, and there's times last year I was on T3, and it's like at any given point I could just be freezing. You have no tolerance to any body temperature at all.
Did you guys ever get any blurry vision in your prep?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've read that that could be related to high T3 uptake.
Mm.
Uh, and
I've
could
only
it,
ever gotten it in one eye.
yeah,
One eye, twitchy in
yeah,
one eye, right?
same. Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
It was so bad. I even like got into like a small little fender bender, like right in front of my house,
No way.
2 weeks out to my show. I did like nothing. I mean, it bent like the license plate on my Prius, but it wasn't like anything crazy. But you can even see it in like some of my stage photos. I'm like
Yeah.
squint a little bit
Now
with
you
one
said
eye.
that's from high T3 uptake.
That's what I've read. It could be like almost like an autoimmune response. Like they
Yeah.
characterize thyroid eye disease,
Mm.
and the treatment for it is an IGF-1 receptor blocker. So I obviously didn't bring it up
No
to my.
thanks.
I didn't want to.
So
I just figured I'd suffer it and wait till
I
it goes.
read
Did but
something. I read something the other day where they were making SS31 into eye drops, and it
I
Mm.
was
saw that.
improving people's vision. So I mean, maybe that's a combo you could do if you did start getting that.
Yeah.
I personally can't do eye drops. Eye drops just they freak me out.
Me too. I'm not putting anything in my eye. You could tell me that the most optimal way to take your GH is to put it in your eye, and I'm not doing it. Um,
I've dosed LSD through my eyes before, so
Oh
I'm like,
my
you
I
goodness.
are a
would, I
maniac,
would give
brother.
it a try.
Holy shit.
He is
That's
the
another
truth.
story. That's another story for another episode.
Yeah.
But no, so I didn't fast forward, like I only used T4 this time, and I had the smoothest prep that I could ever describe to you guys. I didn't have any of these issues that I had previously had trying to modulate T3 throughout only or leveraging it. I suspect that because you are just giving your body the T4 and then it's converting on its own, I have a feeling that during prep, there's so much going on and we're in such a crazy state within our own body. There's all this output, everything's going on in terms of the deficit and the different drugs. I think that when you are just taking a straight T3 dose, I think you get wild swings in how much of it is being released and used. And I think you go through way more ups and downs in my own experience than just using the T4. So a lot of times I will continue that for a lot of people. At some point, I probably would like to get them off, like maybe once the cruise start, because I am an advocate of rebounding people after the show. So then whenever that ends, we may look to lower or remove the thyroid medications. And then I want to see blood work and see how quickly it bounces back. At some point, you might see that you just need, it would be best to be on thyroid medication. But yeah, I think the idea of, it's context dependent with every individual circumstance. But to me, I just feel like pulling the rug out from underneath somebody after a prep, especially if you can't rely on them to be a machine adherence wise, is probably not the best move for most, I would say.
Do you guys taper gear out of a prep too? Like, do you start running like a TRT dose like that first week out? First week post show?
I rebound hard, so no.
Yeah.
I've done.
I mean, I've done it. I have based on the situation and what that person, like based on the client. Yeah, like I'll have someone. Man, there's been times where people were like, you just put someone through a very difficult prep because that's what was required.
Yeah.
And you have guys say, man, I am just so sick of pinning the gear. And I get it. I've been there. I will have someone take a whole week off of their shots and then week 2 or whatever, resume like a cruise or TRT type protocol. Okay. Because to me, in my experience, it seems like that will just most quickly pull them back down into, you're not eliminating these hormones from 1 week of not doing the shots, but that's how you get them back closer to normal as quick as possible.
For sure. That makes sense. Yeah.
I've done approaches. The original approach of not high gear, or not rebounding out and just kind of going to like a TRT. It's cool for a little bit, and then you start seeing yourself get a little bit softer. And that mental, I think that goes it back to like what Joe was saying with the psychology part is like mentally it's a little tough. Even if you are growing at a decent rate at that point, like mentally it's definitely harder to turn around and come taper down as opposed to growing with higher gear. It was definitely a little bit easier to look at myself, and I was a fucking water buffalo this time around. Like I put on like 15 pounds in 2 days, and currently we're less than 40 days post show, and I'm 57 pounds up. So
Yeah,
First exposure to high GH though as well. So
yeah, the yeah.
big factor.
big factor. Yeah. Um, I've done both. Like you know, I worked with John Jewett for a long time, so his move was always like 6, 8, even 10 weeks after the show, you're just going to be on like some type of sports TRT. A lot of the times, this was prior to my gyno surgery, and I was a heavy aromatizer. So a lot of times it was like 140 milligrams a test and another 70 to 140 milligrams of Masteron as a cruise, like no GH. Um,
Pretty
you
good.
know, yeah, very, very conservative. And it's, you know, those periods honestly just weren't great for me. My composition and um, you know, I don't know that there was much gained from that. And then, you know, the composition pretty quickly slides. So to me, I kind of like it's kind of a loose formula, but I generally kind of like to be, you know, that the end of that prep, if you're counting all the milligrams from all your orals and everything all included, that last 2 to 4 weeks of prep is probably the highest it's going to be all year if you're just counting milligrams. So from where that is, you know, like let's take that number and then let's take whatever your prior like off-season peak was. They're probably somewhat similar. Um, I generally will stay on about half of that, you know, of just injectables and rebound with that. And that seems to be great. I just got my labs pulled yesterday, actually, basically 2 weeks post show. I put them up on my Instagram for anybody that's interested. I'm going to do an entire video about it, but they were like immaculate. I couldn't believe it. So shout out to NutraBio because I stay loaded up on NutraBio health supplements. And I talked about it. I did a very aggressive peak protocol this year where at 2 weeks out, I went to 200 milligrams of Winstrol. I went to 200 milligrams of Proviron. The final week I was on 40 milligrams of Halo. And when I started that, I doubled up my daily dosage and used both NAC and TUDCA from NutraBio. So I was basically doing 1,200 milligrams of TUDCA and 2,400 milligrams of NAC a day. And I just got my bloods back 2 weeks post show, and my AST and ALT were both like perfectly in range, which is crazy.
Look great.
Yeah.
Supposed to look awesome. So
Man, it was you know, I expected it because I've always had great tolerance, just like genetically, I guess. I'm on top of my health supplements all the time. I mean, that was one thing that John really instilled in me. So I credit him for that. But also I think just genetically, you have to have like a tolerance factor to you. So it's always been good. I've always gone like, you know, mid off season cycle or whatever, and it doesn't really look like anything's off. ALT or AST might be high because I did legs the day before or something, but you know, GGT and other things would be good. So, but with that said, you know, this was the most aggressive I'd ever been at the end of a prep, and it's 2 weeks after. So it's like, okay, this I knew going into it. I'm like, mentally, I need to be prepared that this might not look how it usually looks. And it honestly might have been the best blood panel I've ever pulled.
you're still running Retta through that time, aren't you? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I do 500 micrograms 3 times a week, so 1.5 milligrams. Now, I had never had a cholesterol problem. That was one thing genetically that was always, no matter what, in good range for me. And it's like almost borderline low now at this point from the retatrutide, because I mean, that's no surprise. I've seen with clients, I have one client that genetically was disposed to being super high, like 190 cholesterol. And this was, I've had this guy since he was natural, and, he's since been enhanced. Cholesterol stayed high. We tried everything under the sun. And then all of a sudden he did a month of retatrutide and it came back at 80.
Fuck.
So,
hell yeah.
Yeah. So no surprise. I mean, I've been wearing a continuous glucose monitor on my arm as well. And the glucose management while in a surplus and on high GH is mind blowing, unbelievable from continuing retatrutide. So, yeah, with all that said, I think, what was the topic even? What was the question?
Post-show rebound.
Yeah. Being aggressive or being on a cruise, how to taper off. Yeah, I mean, I'm on like 1.7 grams a gear, and the high GH, and so it came back great. So I'm like, man, this is awesome. All right, let's see. How many free meals per week that first 4 to 8 weeks after the show? What have you guys found? 0.
I mean, I did like 1 a week.
Yeah.
But I was still waking up at like stage weight, like 4 or 5 weeks post show.
Really?
It took me quite a long time to put weight back on and get fat again. So.
See, that's why you're needing fats, though.
Yeah.
Is you're that type of body.
Yeah, which surprises me being a former obese person.
No shit.
Thought I would be way more sensitive to that, but I need to be stuffing my face with them.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And so I think with this, like, it depends on the size of the free meal and the size of the person. And are you really, okay, outside of your free meals, are you really on it all week, or are you snacking and picking in between? If you're not doing any of that and you're really on, and you're a pretty muscular person, you truly got peeled. I think, I have clients, and I do this myself now, where I treat the rebound like contest prep, because I'm just trying to get as much progress out of it as I can. But that's not for everybody. Like, I have some clients that say, hey, I'm game to try this, and they look insane, 8 weeks later, and then it rolls into them looking totally different next year on stage. But that's not for everybody. And you can have an awesome rebound, especially if you're on all the time and then you go have one free meal a week. That's totally fine. What I typically will tell people, because I'm trying to put food back in, a lot of times I'll put 7 meals in on a training day for people in a rebound, because it just keeps them satiated all the time. So if you're going to go do a cheat meal, and it's not just like something very light or simple for like the social aspect of it, like you're going to eat, I'll tell people, replace 2 of your on-plan meals with that.
Yeah.
And you may still overshoot the combined calories of the 2, but it's not going to be as crazy as you eating all 7 of your meals and then taking down the Cheesecake Factory. So I think the size of the meals is a big one. And people say a calorie is a calorie. I think what you are choosing is a big one too. Like, I know people that mostly will like just make stuff at home for themselves.
Yeah.
They do way better than going out and letting it rip at a restaurant.
I do way better with going to like a farm to table style restaurant.
Yes, exactly.
It's like,
I have
like going to fucking Chili's or some shit like that.
Yeah.
There's we have a ton of that here in Portland, so it's easy for me to, pick 8, and that'll be my cheat meals over the next 2 months. So
yeah,
easy to do.
My control at all you could eat sushi doesn't exist, so I can't have cheat meals post show. So that's why I say 0. After the show, I could have 1, but I would say the next 4 weeks, like both shows that I did, or both seasons I've done, I didn't have cheat meals for the first 4 weeks after the day after the show, simply because I know myself. If I gave myself that freedom to go every week, that is the one food I just genuinely don't get full off of. I'm going to eat the entire place, and they're going to kick me out after 2 hours because I ate the entire time. So
it can be real dangerous too when you go to a good all-you-can-eat sushi place that also happens to have like dessert, and it's like, man, I'm really about to do some damage.
I'll
Agreed
go
to.
straight salmon nigiri the entire time and still overeat. I'll do
Yeah.
100 straight pieces and have no problem with it.
It's smart too, like as a compromise, like because some people, like I said, are not going to be able to do 8 or 12 weeks of a rebound like contest prep. A good compromise would be like, hey, can you give me the first 4 weeks? That's when you're going to be most sensitive and water retentive. Like that's the most likely time that we're going to see a crazy water fluctuation or body weight gain. You're most sensitive to store fat at that point. So I think that's a really nice compromise between the two. Because if you can make it that first 4 weeks without one, and then you just layer in like a pretty big but reasonable cheat meal once a week from there on out and manage your diet on those days otherwise to make up for it, you're going to nail your rebound. You're going to have an awesome rebound.
Yeah, I'll be 6 weeks post show on Saturday and
You
haven't.
going to eat?
No, I wasn't planning on it. Listen, I don't know about Spencer, but like you and Austin both got ladies. I got Delilah. Delilah ain't
Yeah.
allowed to have table food.
Yeah.
So I ain't taking her out.
Yeah.
She also bites. So like I got no one to go with. I'm chilling in the crib. I'll cook my own
Yeah.
damn.
That's cool.
Yeah.
How lean to get before an initial growth phase, having likely never been below 12% before?
My gauge is ab veins. Ab veins and nothing hanging over your lower back. Like with tighter,
So
if you
that's
have any
lean.
compression shorts on, like
Yeah.
a little bit of skin is fine, but like nothing's hanging over. And like ab veins, I've seen some people who are like from behind, they could look 10 to 12 weeks out, but their ab veins are pretty dialed in. So
I think it kind of depends on what your starting point is too.
Yeah.
I started like doing a cut like 3-4 years ago. It was my first time really getting under 10%. And I think I started somewhere around like 25 or 27% body fat. I
Wow.
got like 6%, and I
In
consulted with,
one continuous diet, you did this?
yeah, and
Whoa.
I was looking pretty fucking stringy by the end of
Yeah.
that. Uh,
Yeah.
I consulted with a few. I was like, well, fuck it. Why don't I just keep going down to 2%? Like, just
Yeah.
see how low I can get with it, because I was having fun with it at that point. I didn't really feel fatigued. And I was told I was just like, hey, you need to pump the brakes. It was Jared Feather told me that. He was just
Mm.
like, "Dad, you need to pump the fucking brakes and like come out, reverse out, and then cut down again."
See, that was going to be my point, though. So something like that, like, you were heavy. This guy is saying that he's never been below 12%. And in my experience, people way underestimate what they think body fat percentages are. So that tells me that this guy's probably never been under 15%. Like the way that I'm taking this guy has never really had like a set of abs, right?
I was
So
measuring mine via DEXA, so I knew
no, I
exactly.
know you were. I know you were.
Yeah, like visually speaking, like
Yeah.
just at the frame of your abs usually indicates you're somewhere around 10 to 12%.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, like Josh said, if you can see veins in them, then yeah, you're getting pretty low. So
So
that's
being
also
that this guy has never been lean, like that's kind of his point. Like where should I go to get this started? I would take it as far as you can. You're the perfect example of what I was going to say. Like take it as far as you can go, because you know what? A lot of times when people do that, you see a continued benefit after you reverse for a long, you've reset what your body's set point is.
right.
So it may take a while. And I would advise you, like you said that you did, to hang out there for a bit. Don't be in a rush to come back out of it, because it's going to pay enormous dividends to not only get lean, but stay lean for a bit.
Yeah.
Everything is going to change for you on the way up. So if you're asking like how to set up, a growing phase as best as possible, get as lean as possible. Get so lean that people are concerned for you. Get so lean that maybe if you have some muscle on you, people start asking you if you're competing or that you should compete. Get that lean. And then from there, dude, everything else, you've improved everything else from that point forward.
It makes putting on muscle so much easier. You can do your own mini little rebound out of that.
Oh, dude, 100%.
It took me like a year to get above 10% after I did that.
Right. Right.
And I was like, I was probably eating like 90% clean, eating out
Right.
twice maybe, by able
Sure.
to
Yeah.
eat.
A lot of on-plan food, couple
Yeah,
free meals a week. Like,
yeah,
that makes sense though, too, that you did that. And then you were saying this past year after getting like, you were super peeled and probably maybe even a little bit over dieted. You're saying 4 or 5 weeks after the show, you're eating up and still like can't get above your stage weight.
yeah.
That is an example of how getting super, super lean beyond what you've ever been at can reset your entire system. It can reset your entire body.
Changed my genetics like permanently. I
That's
think
what I almost use the word genetics, and I'm like, I'm going to sound like an idiot, but
I mean, those are definitely involved with as far as like your ability to store fat and to mobilize it whenever you're ready to do so.
yeah,
Yeah, it's. I think a
Actually,
lot of people need a hard reset like that.
100%. I think even for the off-season bodybuilder, I went through this. I did like a long off-season. I did 3 years because I was like, man, I'm hell bent. I need to put on more size. And my response once I started to diet for a show was not even close to the same because I had taught my body to be fat, like to be heavy. I don't want to
bodybuilder
say
fat.
bodybuilder fat, and it. I think it makes you more resilient to losing fat the longer you stay heavy. Whereas then it took me way longer to diet it off. It took me more effort, more output, and it took me way longer to get back to where it was. Once I did that and I dieted for a long time, I reaped the benefits of it this year because then I turned around and started a diet much quicker. I didn't do a crazy extended off season, and it was like bam, I was in shape way earlier than I expected. So, yeah, I can't recommend this enough. I think it's an awesome idea that you at least have the self awareness to want to do this, and I think if you pull it down as far as you possibly can without it being at the cost of the rest of your life. Yeah, I would just strip it all off and start over.
Agreed. I had a similar situation growing up. I was always kind of chubby. Um, and then I have,
Really?
oh yeah, I have very, very interesting, like my genetics kind of flipped on themselves. Even
Well,
all the way through
I
my
mean,
senior
that's what
year
we're
of
talking
college.
about.
My senior year of college, I was still chubby. I was about 250 pounds my senior, after football was over. And I
Not
died,
this 250.
no, not even close. And then I dieted down to like 190 with the help of a coach, actually the help of two coaches, um, just because one unfortunately passed away during that time.
Oh, damn. Way to
Yeah,
bring down the vibe. Jesus
yeah, I
Christ.
know, right? I just ruined that one. Fucking
Fuck.
masochist Mondays. But turn around and next thing I know, like I haven't realistically not had abs since that time.
You're way better now than like what your peak off season was last year. Like you showed that comparison. And yet, even so, like looking at last offseason for you, I'm like, man, this isn't that bad of a before picture. Like you're softer and you're less muscular, but I'm like, man, this isn't terrible at all.
No, I from the front, I don't really get fat. From the
Yeah,
back, I definitely do, but from the front, I'll have like
that's
I
most of
currently
us.
have veins.
Well, that's wild, but I definitely won't be 60 pounds up without veins. That's for damn sure. But most of us look pretty decent from the front for, you know what I mean? Like deeper into the off season. And then that's usually the first thing to look pretty good. Man, there's been times where I'm 12 weeks out from behind and I look like I'm 2 weeks out from the front. Um,
Yeah.
it's just a lot of times it's those problem areas like with men, it's, the love handles and it's the glutes. And just as a final thing, we can wrap it here, but I think when you're pushing up or you're in the off season, you're growing, people want to know how lean should I stay or what's too far. I think if you are someone with very obvious particular spots that are problem areas where you overly store your fat, some people kind of store it in an even manner. And then some people have like big, obvious love handles or just like the softest, soggiest looking glutes that you've ever seen. Don't let your other body parts fool you. If you're one of these people, you might be lean from the front. You might have a good lower set of abs and you might have lines in your quads. But if I can see your love handles and your muffin tops from the front, it's going to make your prep a nightmare. Just
You're only as
trust
lean
me
as
on
your
it.
fattest body part.
That's exactly
really,
right.
is how I look at it.
That's exactly
Uh,
right. Both in the
it's-
context I'm talking about in off season,
Agreed. I
because
think Joe froze.
it's
Yeah,
true. Oh man.
Oh.
Am I back?
But 100% either way, like you're only as fat as your leanest body part. Back? Yeah,
All right. You guys got me?
you're not
Yeah,
moving.
froze it visually though.
All right. Well, I'm going to end it here. This is the final 5 seconds of the podcast. So